In this video, I'm going to rank every Raleigh neighborhood by appreciation. You know, every single Raleigh neighborhood made money over the last decade, but the buyer who stretched for a costlier area in 2015 left almost double the percentage return on the table compared to the buyer who stayed within their budget. You know, after years of living here, I pulled the real data on 10 zip codes and ranked every single one by exactly how much they appreciated since 2015. And the results are really going to surprise you. This is the dollar countdown. And before we get started, I want you to know exactly how this research was built. My numbers came from Triangle MLS data comparing 2015 home prices to 2025 single-family resales only. So these are the real homes that real people bought and held for a decade. I've had a long career in Triangle real estate, and education concerning home appreciation is essential to make smarter decisions when buying your home. When you buy a home, it's always an investment, so why not make it a great one? Now, here's how this works. We're going to count this down from the lowest dollar gain to the highest, and every single area on this list went up. Some went up significantly more than others, so you'll see. Let's get started. Start out with number 10, Clayton, zip code 27520. You know, starting in Johnston County, just over a Wake County line, Clayton's been one of the most affordable entry points in our area for years. Back in 2015, the average price home in Clayton set at the high 100s. By 2025, that pushed home prices into the high 300s. So you're looking at about $200,000 in raw appreciation, which works out to roughly $1,665 a month in equity gain. You know, just owning a home. It's no wonder I tell clients that your first day that you own a home, you begin building wealth. You know, Clayton lands at the bottom of the dollar list because the starting price was so low. But on a percentage basis, that ranking flips and impresses anyone that's really paying attention. Our number 9 is Garner, zip code 27529. Right outside of I-440 Beltline, south of Raleigh, Garner moved from the low 200s in 2015 to the low 400s by 2025. And that's also about $200,000 in dollar equity gain, roughly $1,665 a month. So now here's the thing about Garner. It's never been a flashy pick, but it's a quick 15 minutes into downtown Raleigh, and that proximity matters a lot to workers that are working in downtown Raleigh. Since Raleigh is the seat of state government, the number is strong. As inner Raleigh prices climbed, buyers who got priced out had to land somewhere. So they moved south, and Garner absorbed a lot of that demand. And that takes us to number 8, which is Wendell, zip code 27591. Wendell is about 20 miles east of Raleigh. And 10 years ago, it was a small, mostly rural town that nobody outside our area was talking about very much. In 2015, the average home there was in the high 100s. By 2025, that moved into the low 400s. So you're looking at about $230,000 in dollar gain, roughly $1,915 a month in equity. The driver behind all of this was a new development called Wendell Falls. This master plan community broke ground around 2015 and has since become one of the signature urban projects in the entire Triangle. So over 2,300 homes were sold, nearly 273 acres of preserved open space, a real town center with shops and restaurants and a calendar of community events. Wendell went from an outside rural outlier to an in-demand lifestyle in the destination in the last 10 years. So which is also true for other planned communities that are coming our way. So remember, if you're trying to figure out where you actually fit in this market, and that's exactly what my team does. So we can do the math for you, plus help you with any questions that you might have. My contact information is in the description below. I'd love to hear from you. You know, the countdown continues at number 7 with Wake Forest, zip code 27587. About 18 miles north of downtown Raleigh, anchored by historic college town that gave this area its name, Wake Forest has grown into a real Triangle destination over the last decade. The average home in 2015 set in the low to mid 300s. By 2025, that climbed to the high 500s. So about $260,000 in appreciation, roughly $2,100 a month in equity gain. But who actually lives here? You know, families who want that small town feel with quick access to Raleigh. More recently, high-end development has attracted buyers that use Highway 98 west of Capitol Boulevard to commute to RTP. And the catch is that builders that have been busy with new communities like Holding Village on the east side of Wake Forest near Roseville. And you know, when supply keeps coming, it tends to pull a ceiling on how fast prices can climb. So when we re-rank Wake Forest according to the different rules of appreciation, you'll be surprised. Let's go to number 6, which is East Raleigh, zip code 27610. You know, East Raleigh sits right outside the Beltline, minutes from downtown, and back in 2015, you could get into 27610 in the mid 100s, one of the most affordable entry points in our entire city. And by 2025, that same area pushed into the low 400s. So about $270,000 in appreciation, roughly $2,250 a month in equity gain over the past decade. You know, this area has been through real revitalization and real investment from buyers waking up to a zip code that was undervalued for years. This is the kind of percentage gain that comes when affordability finally catches up to location. Our number 5 spot is Fuquay-Varina, zip code 27526. About 15 to 18 miles south of Raleigh, Fuquay has been one of the fastest appreciating spots in the entire Triangle for over a decade now. The average moved from the low 200s in 2015 to the low 500s by 2025, and that's about $305,000 in dollar gain and around $2,500 a month in equity gain. So who actually lives here? You know, families that are chasing more house for their money, plus a popular downtown with breweries, walkable shops, and a small town vibe that keeps pulling people in. So buyers priced out of the Apex and Holly Springs kept finding their way to Fuquay, and they're sitting on real equity now because of that. Which brings me to the next spot, number 4, Apex, North Carolina, at zip code 27502. Now we're getting into our top appreciating areas. Apex has attacked the peak of good living and is probably the most consistently in-demand suburb in the entire Triangle. So way back in 2015, the average price point was in the low 300s. By 2025, it climbed to the low to mid 600s. That's about $310,000 in dollar gain, roughly $2,500 a month in equity. This unique, walkable downtown location right off NC 540 with quick access to RTP and the established master plan communities, it all added up and Apex blossomed. Apex doubled in value and demand and is still strong. Our local TV station, WRAL, shows Apex as one of the hottest demand areas in the entire Triangle for buyers right now. With business and residential development continuously growing in this area, demand shows no signs of slowing. And that takes us to the number 3 area, Holly Springs, zip code 27540. You know, Holly Springs sits about 15 miles southwest of downtown Raleigh, and it's been one of the most consistent winners on our list. In 2015, the average home price was in the low 300s. By 2025, that pushed into the low to mid 600s as well, with about $310,000 in equity gain, roughly $2,600 a month in equity. And Holly Springs stands out. It's the only area on our list still posting near double-digit annual appreciation in early 2026. Even with the broader market cooling a bit, that's a big deal. The lifestyle has compounded over the decade, planned communities, a real greenway network, the the club at 12 Oaks, and buyers are still moving to this area steadily. And that takes us to number 2, which is Cary, 27511. This is the heart of Cary. Cary is probably the most relocator-friendly address in the entire region and has remained so for the last 20 years. The average home moved from the high 200s in 2015 into the low 600s by 2025, and that's a $340,000 gain, roughly $2,800 a month in equity over the decade. Cary's appreciation is directly related to proximity to RTP, including SAS Institute headquarters and many others. Cary has a steady stream of corporate transferees who land here and decide to stay. The lifestyle is established and demand has been relentless. Even with the higher price point that I'll reveal later, Cary is winning. And that brings us to the number 1 area in zip code 27609. And that's 5 Points and North Hills. The number 1 hotspot on the dollar list is the area just inside the Beltline that covers 5 Points and parts of North Hills. In 2015, the average was in the low to mid 200s. By 2025, that pushed into the low 600s. And we're looking at about $390,000 in appreciation, roughly $3,200 a month in equity gain over a 10-year hold. And you can't recreate what's happening in the zip code of 27609. It's inside the Beltline, so it's culturally tied to the urban, walkable side of Raleigh. You've got 5 Points, one of the most charming, historic neighborhoods in the whole city. And you've also got John Kane's massive redevelopment of North Hills has brought in high-end shopping, dining, and corporate office towers. So the inventory rarely turns over, and that's a setup that keeps pulling prices higher year after year. And that's the dollar countdown. The 10 zip codes and the neighborhoods, 10 different entry points, and every single one of them built real equity. Now let's flip it to start looking at percentage return. The entire ranking flips around. The highest percentage return on our list actually goes to 5 Points and North Hills area at 174% appreciation over this 10-year span. A buyer who got in to this area in the mid 200s in 2015 has nearly tripled their equity by 2025. And right behind it, surprisingly, was East Raleigh at about 168%. Then Fuquay-Varina at about 140%. Wendell at about 125%. Cary at roughly 116%. Clayton just over 108%. Apex and Holly Springs right around 99%. Garner at about 93%. And Wake Forest at the bottom of the percentage list at about 80%. You know, the most affordable areas in 2015 produced the strongest percentage returns by a wide margin. So a buyer who got into 5 Points or East Raleigh in 2015 saw nearly double the percentage return of a buyer who stretched to get into Apex, Holly Springs, or Garner. And the reason comes down to simple market math. When the whole region is moving up, lower priced areas have more percentage room to run. A $200,000 home that doubles means that $200,000 in dollar gain and 100% return on your home investment. A $500,000 home that gained that same $200,000 only shows a 40% return on paper. So the same dollar movement, very different return on investment. So if you had a smaller budget in 2015, your return on investment may have been higher than the buyers who stretched. Buying within your range in the right neighborhood beats stretching for the most expensive zip code on the map. So what implication does this mean for today's buyers? After a decade of data, every single neighborhood on this list won. None of them went backward. Even the slowest performer on the percentage side still appreciated in 10 years. That's a city that just kept growing while a lot of national markets struggled. And right now, Raleigh is still outperforming the country in a big way. The national market is down about 12% from its peak, and Raleigh is only down about 3%. So we're seeing a seller advantage scenario. You know, Wake County is sitting around around 3 months of inventory in early 2026, and homes are taking about 27 to 30 days to sell. And we are witnessing the market settle after the fast run-up from 2020 through 2023. It's not a downturn. So now if you're thinking about buying in Raleigh in 26, here's how I think about that. You know, match your budget to the right tier, then pick the strongest neighborhood within that tier. You know, under 400,000, you're looking at Clayton as a great choice. Then the low to mid 400s, you've got Garner, East Raleigh, and Wendell. These still have the most percentage room to appreciate because they're starting from a lower base, and the same forces that drove appreciation over the last decade are still in place. In the $400,000 to $600,000 range, Fuquay, Wake Forest, and entry-level parts of Cary give you an established neighborhood with real lifestyle appeal and ongoing demand. In the 600 to the 800 range, Apex, Holly Springs, and the rest of Cary and 5 Points and North Hills stand out. And the fundamentals supporting all of this aren't going anywhere. The Raleigh-Cary Metro continues to add jobs in early 26. North Carolina led the entire country in domestic migration in 2025. Plus, all of these developments I mentioned, like Wendell and Apex, will keep people moving here for the quality of life and jobs. And there's a limited number of homes so they can move to. So if you're looking to buy in Raleigh, or you've already owned here and you want to know what your home is actually worth in this market, reach out. My team tracks appreciation across every Triangle neighborhood, and I'd love to put together a breakdown specifically for you. So shoot me an email at marti@martihampton.com. And if you want to see which Raleigh suburbs are blooming right now in 26, watch this next video. It's a full breakdown of where the smart buyers are looking this year. Thanks for being here. See you next time.